Yeah, thank you. So today I'm going to hopefully talk to you about character strengths. Some of you may be aware of those already. And if you want any more information, please feel free to get in contact with me. I'm hoping that my internet is going to be good. There's no reason for it not to be working. So we're going to learn more about what character strengths are, how you can harness your own character strengths and lead to greater fulfillment. As I said, my name is Emily Johns, applied positive psychology and coaching psychology, which is a little bit of a mouthful. And my top strength we'll talk about later on are perspective, leadership, kindness, love of learning, and fairness. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today to learn more about character strengths and how to use them in your coaching and for your own personal development. In the next probably about an hour or so, I'll aim to give you an overview of the character strengths and how you can use these. I'm going to share with you what the character strengths are, why it might be useful for you to use them, and then give you 3 strategies that you could use to improve your well-being or your clients' well-being. These will be how to develop a strengths habit, imagining your best possible future self using strengths, and enhancing lesser strengths. So here is a quote from Martin Seligman, who is considered the father of positive psychology. So when well-being comes from engaging our strengths and virtues, our lives are imbued with authenticity. So character strengths, what are they? So character strengths are 24 strengths that have been identified by social scientists. There's a selection of them here. And the character strengths are the core qualities, so the essential parts of our identity. That's the fuel that makes us rise, makes us happier. That's what makes us us. That's what makes you you. They enable us to put our values, what's in our head and our hearts, into action. So if I were to ask you, what matters most to you? After you take away any distractions, any possessions, what matters most to you in this one life that you have? Some of you might say, I'd like to be happier. Yeah. Some of you might say, I'd like to be healthier. Some of you might say, get a good job, have meaningful relationships. I would say that what matters most to me is making a difference to other people, making me feel that I am making a difference to other people. Other people talk about finding inner peace, finding solutions to social problems, making the environment better. But for now, let me ask you this. How can you reach any of these positive outcomes without using your character strengths? Really, the answer is you can't. In order to achieve anything in life, to reach goals, you need to tap into your self-regulation, your perseverance. In order to live healthily, you need to tap into strengths like prudence and hope to create any kind of good, meaningful relationships. We need to be using strengths like kindness and love and forgiveness and social intelligence. And some of these things come more naturally to some than others. And as I said, my top strength is perspective. How do I know that character strengths are key to who we are and how to be happy? So in the mid-2000s, something groundbreaking took place in the social sciences. A common language of human strengths was uncovered. So all of these things, none of these things are new, but in the early 2000s, probably about 10, 15 years ago now, a group of social scientists started researching what makes humans human. There was a 3-year project, a collaboration of 55 social scientists who wanted to answer the question of what's best about human beings. What constitutes a life of flourishing, a good life, a meaningful life? They travelled all over the world to really remote parts of the globe, spoke with Inuit people in northern Greenland. They spoke to remote cultures connected to the Maasai, the tribal people, way off the tour circuit in Kenya. Eastern cultures, Western cultures. But what they found is in parallels across these cultures, across what's being said, across what's in all of the world religions and the ancient philosophers dating back as far as Aristotle. They found a common language that's in all of it. And this common language includes strengths like creativity, curiosity, kindness, love, social intelligence, bravery, perseverance, zest, honesty, teamwork, leadership, appreciation of beauty and excellence, self-regulation, prudence, and humility. In total, there are 24 strengths. So in the last decade, there have now been hundreds of studies showing the strengths using these strengths is connected with greater flourishing in life. So basically being happier and being the best you can possibly be. It's connected with greater health, greater happiness, managing problems, managing depression, building better relationships, and so on. So traditional therapy and psychology tends to focus on a deficit-based approach. What's wrong and how we can fix it. By focusing instead on character strengths to enable individuals to amplify what they best can supercharge your life, to use, for want of a better term. And as coaches, and I believe most of the coaches today here or aspiring coaches, we focus on the positives, we focus on goal setting and outcomes. And we can use character strengths to help our clients to achieve their goals. We can ask questions like, well, what's actually best about you? What are your highest strengths? How might you tap into your own curiosity, your own kindness that's very high for you? How might you use that to solve your problems? How might you tap into your strength of hope or self-regulation to become more resilient in life? Or if you want to create a better relationship with somebody, well, how might you talk about how to tap into your fairness and forgiveness and other strengths? One metaphor that can be used is a pilot light. So on your boiler or on your cooker, you have a pilot light. So it starts off as a very small flame and then gets brighter and brighter. And you've seen that in your stove or in your fireplace. The little movement, that faint flame, sometimes it's barely perceptible. We all have 24 pilot lights in the character strengths. These are 24 capacities to bring forward good, positive qualities. We could think as these as potential realities, potential for much more. And if we focus on these pilot lights, if we ignite them, we really get them going, perhaps we can reach the next level and make them brighter, make them bigger. You might have noticed when you have been in conversation with somebody that they're talking about something positive or something good that happened to them. And, you start to see them smile a little bit. Maybe they have a change in their posture. Maybe they sit up straighter, or they're suddenly a bit more open. Maybe they have a little bit of a giggle in their voice, or maybe their eyes light up. You can literally see that when they're talking about something positive. These are the flickers, the little sparks that we notice in ourselves or in other people. It's kind of like the precursor to the character strengths that we're noticing. With enough flickers, we can reach the next level. And that moves on to the bigger flame. So this is what we're expressing, one character strength or more in a situation. So what comes more naturally to us? So perhaps you're, walking down the street and you see a homeless person and you decide to buy a cup of coffee and give it to the homeless person who's standing in the cold on the corner. In that moment, your character strength of kindness is shining brightly. Maybe you've called a friend, or you had a confrontation, shall we say, with a friend, and they're trying to get a rise out of you, and you decided to restrain yourself. That you would be using your character strength of self-regulation because you knew that it could cause a problem in this relationship, but you decided to hold back and lean into that strength of self-regulation. Maybe you relate to a tutor or a teacher who is helping a student in class, or a student who might have a disability. This tutor or this teacher was working with them, and the student was really starting to struggle with the material or struggle with something physical. And the tutor said, let's just stop for a moment. Let's just pause. I want you to see how much bravery and how much courage you have by coming today. So that's about spotting strengths in other people. So we're not just expressing love in our relationships in our family. We can also express love in the workplace. So love isn't just romantic love here. We could be warm and genuine to the people by being thoughtful or by being a good listener. And we don't just express fairness and teamwork and perseverance at work. We could also express it in our private lives or in our relationships. There's been a really important finding in the science, and it's finding out what's called our signature strengths. So there are 24 strengths here, and we will all use these in different degrees. And at the end, I'm going to share the link for the character strength survey. But our signature strengths, they're the top 5 strengths that are unique to each person. So you will have 5 of these strengths that are more prevalent for you. They are the most energizing for you, most natural for you to use. And what the research is finding, that this is across cultures, that people use their signature strengths in new ways each day. That's been associated in gold standard studies by universities such as Harvard, Yale, the University of Pennsylvania. And it's been associated with higher happiness and less depression. If you think about using one of your best qualities in a little bit of a wider way, a little bit new and in a little bit of a unique way, you could increase your happiness. You could encourage your clients to increase their happiness and their well-being. So I want to invite you now to select one of your signature strengths. So on the screen, there are 24 character strengths. As I said, my top strength is is perspective. So the little owl here. So I can see other people's points of view really well, and I can see the big picture really well. If you've taken the survey before, you may already know what your top strengths are. If you don't, have a quick look at the screen in front of you and choose one that most resonates with you. So I would like you to pick one, perhaps that you believe is most core to who you are or most central to your identity. So I want to invite you to really see the strength that you've chosen within you and appreciate it. See that it's helped you in so many ways in your life to achieve different things to reach your goals. It's contributed in a positive way to your relationships. It's helped you to engage in your day-to-day life. Maybe it's even helped you to find a deeper meaning in life. See and appreciate that strength. And now imagine that your strength has been plucked out of you. You're not allowed to use that strength for the next month. How would that feel? How would it be like to not use that strength for the next month? So for example, if you chose curiosity, you can't pursue anything new for the next month. You can't pursue novelty, you can't do anything, you can't ask any new questions. You can't explore anything on the internet. You can't eat any new foods, you can't go to any new places, any new restaurants for the next month. If you chose judgment, for example, and critical thinking, you can't be logical, you can't be fact-based, you can't be thinking orientated. You can't be reasonable with people, you can't look at many ways to solve problems. You can't look at details of a situation for the next month. If you chose love, you can't be warm and genuine with your relationships. You can't be thoughtful to people. You can't value close relationships. You certainly can't even hug or kiss anybody for the next month. What do you think it would be like to take away one of your signature strengths? For any of the strengths you chose, and how do you think people used used to respond to that word or phrase is they say, I would feel empty inside. I would feel hollow. If you can't use something, if you can't do something that's core to who you are, you'd probably feel quite depressed, even devastated. Some people in this study said that they would feel really anxious and upset, feel like you're not being yourself, like you were just, I don't know, twiddling your thumbs in life, not working towards your real purpose. Because my best quality was taken away from me, and that's how important your signature strengths are, and they are unique to each person on the planet. Okay, I'm just checking the chat now. Living without one of our strengths would be challenging. Yep. Would it cause you to have to drastically recalibrate? Yep. Fantastic. So perhaps you're ready to take action. There's always more going on beyond the surface, and every conversation, everything that we do with anybody. And in order to see strength, in order to see virtues in people, in order to do something different, we have to take action with the strength. We have to learn how to see this in a different way. You might remember that who you are is what you repeatedly do. So who you are in this world is what you repeatedly do. So in character strengths, who we are is what we repeatedly do. I know in some situations, I lean on my strength of perspective probably a little bit too much. And I know that my lesser strengths, my strengths at the very bottom, are self-regulation and perseverance. I retook the VIA Strength Survey recently, and my top 5 and my bottom 5 had not changed. It's worth noting that if you do focus on your strengths, they can change. So they are inherent to who you are, but they are not immovable. They can be changed. Your top strength of perspective, for example, may always be in your top 5 because it is inherent to who you are. But your bottom strengths, they are also inherent to who you are, but they can change. It will be harder, it won't come as naturally, but you can change. So you might take time to savor and appreciate your top strengths. You might turn to the person next to you and talk to them about the strengths that you see in them, that you see fairness and kindness and forgiveness in them. You might spot those strengths in others. You might go a step further and see strengths of your enemies. So we all have people that we perhaps don't get along with as well. And by appreciating their strengths are different from ours, it can help build better relationships. So how do you express your strengths? I'm going to invite you to reflect on how you use your strengths, to discuss them with other people and use them every single day. Keep them top of your mind, cue yourself to remember to use your strengths. And imagine that if you did that, imagine how much more positive your life could be. There'll be this ripple effect. If more people were focusing on their strengths, there would be a huge ripple effect. It would spread to our families, to our work environments, to our classrooms, to our neighbourhoods and beyond. So if we can rediscover these pilot lights that are within us, we can see these sparks, see these flickers of light and people. We can reinforce these in other people. So when you tap into your character strengths, you are being your authentic self. On the screen here is some suggestions on some descriptions of the 24 character strengths. You are expressing your best qualities. It can help you take your other strengths to the next level. You can link them together. You can pull along other strengths by using your signature strengths. You might have an incredible talent for athletics, but you need the character strength of perseverance and self-regulation to become an Olympian. Studies have found that the development of our character strengths come with many benefits, as we've already mentioned, which include improvements in engagement, creativity, satisfaction with work, better relationships, better communities. So we've talked about your signature strengths. These are the top 5 which are most central to who you are and best capture your uniqueness. They're also more energizing to use. They come more naturally to us. And across several studies in different cultures, the strengths of zest, hope, love, gratitude, and curiosity are most correlated with life satisfaction and are often referred to as the happiness strengths. So that's zest, hope, love, gratitude, and curiosity. So those are the top 5 which are most associated with life satisfaction. So your lesser strengths. So these are the bottom strengths. So they're typically the bottom 5, but it could be as many as the bottom 7. We don't view them as weaknesses, but as strengths that are either underdeveloped, unrealized, or not as valued as the other strengths, or at least less used compared to the other strengths. These are the ones that don't come as naturally to us and that we perhaps have to work really hard at. So the VIA strengths, VIA stands for Values in Action. They were created by a team of leading social scientists who scoured the world for ways to identify, measure, and develop what's good in people. They identify your character strengths, and these are positive personality traits reflected what is good, practical, and authentic about you. And they fall into 6 broad categories. So there are 24 in total, as you can see on the screen. And the broad categories are wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. I can send this afterwards if anybody wants it. These are the how you like to go about your work, regardless of whether anybody pays you or recognizes you for it, because they're aligned to the values that you hold. It's also important to note that whilst your strengths exist within you, they're also shaped by the situation you're in. So they will move around a little bit. It's recommended that you take the VIA survey annually. And as I said, I took it last June in 2020, and I took it again this week. I don't expect you to have taken this survey before today's presentation, but I would highly recommend that you do so afterwards. It is free. They do ask you to set up an account, but they don't send you any spam. So I'm going to have a look now at the 3 strategies that you can use with your clients or with yourself to help enhance your life. Yeah, I will send a PDF of that afterwards. Thank you. Okay. So here are 3 strategies for you to try using your character strengths. If you'd like any further information, my contact details are at the end of the presentation. The first thing I'd like you to do is ask yourself, why strengths? In general, what do you think the point of character strengths is? Feel free to unmute yourself or feel free to type in the chat. What do you think the point of character strengths is? Okay. Capabilities? Not necessarily. Anyone else would like to share? So this might be something you want to explore for yourself. It might involve explaining the negativity bias. Strengths help us to develop confidence, which is a core for many of the things to develop. Yeah, I would say that that's definitely linked to it. So we have a negativity bias. As humans, we are negatively biased. We are much more likely to focus on something bad that's happened than something good that has happened. The brain is wired for seeing flaws, problems, dangers. We all have that fight or flight response. The research around how bad is stronger than good, research about around the higher percentages of strengths, blindness, high disengagement levels at work, and low flourishing levels in the population, as well as research connecting character strengths with numerous kinds of positive outcomes, and research showing that it can be better to target what's best over trying to remediate a deficit, to change the deficit. So now narrow the question for yourself or your client. Why might character strengths matter? So this could involve linking strengths. If you're going to use this in a client session, it could involve linking the strengths to the client's reason for meeting that day. So why have they come? And linking their strengths. So for example, when I attend coaching as a client, my strength of perspective is that I'm going to get an outcome from the session, or after a number of sessions. So it also could involve linking the client's strengths to their overall goals and their personal values. So I invite you to delve into the what. What are the strengths of character? So it might involve conversations about the definition of character strengths, the new science of character strengths, signature strengths, examples of strengths in the VIA classification, the screen I showed you previously, how they're different from other types of strengths. If they haven't all, okay, so Dark is right, I changed my focus to my strengths instead to my weaknesses. Yes, and focusing on the positive about what's good and about what we can do better is much better than having a deficit-focused approach. So I would highly recommend you as individuals to take the VIA strengths and to use this with your clients. The first time I took it, it was eye-opening to see what my top strengths were. It was almost validating for me to see that things that other people perhaps hadn't appreciated about me were what made me me. And it's definitely made me more confident to own my strengths. So next you want to explain the how you will be taking a strength-based approach, how you will help the client or use it for yourself for personal development with character strengths. You might want to use a couple of activities. Signature strength use, targeting of specific character strengths, application of character strengths for boosting well-being in relationships and for managing problems and challenges. So your opening question might be, I'd be curious to hear what your emotional reaction was to your character strengths profile. So when you originally looked at your rank order results from the VIA survey, can you pinpoint your feelings and explain why you might have felt that way? So when you take the VIA strength survey yourself, I invite you to ask yourself this question. So what are you mindful of now within yourself as you read the rank order and the strength names and their descriptors? What strikes you? At the end, I'll show you what my most recent survey looks like. So they will rank your strengths from 1 to 24. So the top one is the one that you display according to the survey most readily. And it goes all the way down to your lesser strengths, the ones that you display less readily or use less readily. Generally the top 5 are considered to be your signature strengths, but it could be from anywhere from 4 to 7. So for each of your top 10 character strengths, ask yourself or ask your client this. Is this character strength central to who I am as a human being? Is this character strength energizing for me and natural or easy to use? How does this character strength describe the real me? In what ways is this a true description of me? How is this strength of value to me? Why is it important? What are the costs of this strength for me? And in what ways does it not serve me well? So the latter questions could be offered in a session or given as a homework activity between sessions. Therefore, coaches or practitioners might try to maximize adherence to this activity by asking the client what their preferred mechanism of reflection or learning is. So for example, you could ask your client to journal on this. You could ask them to have a conversation about this or meditate about it. Typical approaches do tend to be journal responses, formal discussions with a loved one or with a close friend, sitting in meditation or quiet reflection with the questions, or querying others for input on the questions. So we might not always be able to spot the strengths in ourselves, but our close colleagues, friends, loved ones might be able to spot it in us. So that's starting off with the top 10 character strengths. The second strategy I'd like to share with you is to develop a strength habit. So most of our habits, both good and bad, are created automatically, beyond our conscious awareness. Making a small change in your behaviour sounds straightforward. Yet many people are so overwhelmed that even when they understand how developing their strengths will make their job easier and more enjoyable, they lack the daily mental space and energy to start. Quite simply, it's easy to get lost in autopilot and daily habits. Consider a character strength you would like to build up. This could be a lesser strength or one of those in your top 10. In fact, it could be any one of your 24 strengths, one that you feel that you might want to boost in order to have a more positive outcome. So you're going to choose a cue, such as anchoring the habit to something you already do. For example, getting out of bed, cleaning your teeth. That would be one of self-regulation. It could be anchoring it to a challenging class if you are a teacher, or a specific time, like driving to work or eating your lunch. And that should be about a 30-second cue. So routine, you're going to create a routine around this. So embedding it in your environment, post-it notes, putting out art supplies, etc. I don't know what's happened there. Writing a journal, when you're going to do it. So when it is my lunch break, then I will brainstorm 5 new ideas, for example. Once you have created your routine, you're then going to practice. So we all know that creating a habit takes practice. When you practice this new strength habit, you are then going to reward yourself. However you wish to reward yourself. I don't recommend drinking a glass of wine when you're at work, but there could be some way that you could reward yourself by creating this strength habit. Neuroscientific research around habit-making behaviours has revealed that this 3-part process called the habit loop is at play and creating and automatizing habits. It's a difficult word to say. Michelle McQuaid, she is a positive psychology researcher. She applies this research to strengths and studied over 2,000 employees across 65 countries. She found that people could create an 11-minute strength habit. More specifically, she found that 41% of people questioned improved their ability to name their own strengths. 60% of people became better at setting their weekly strength-based goals, and 41% improved their feeling of having the opportunity to do what they did best each day. In addition to this, 39% improved the likelihood of having a meaningful strengths conversation with their supervisor, and 32% felt their organisation was more committed to developing their strengths. Numerous additional benefits included greater flourishing, engagement and feeling valued, feeling energised, and feeling like that they were making a difference. I truly believe that if companies, organisations, schools, employers embraced character strengths, then we would all be much happier at work. The second strategy I would like to share with you is imagining your best possible future self. So looking to the future is an important pathway to setting goals that are personally meaningful. It can give you perspective on the direction you want to go in. Linking character strengths with this imagined life can supercharge your goals. So this is something you can do for yourself. I would recommend, if you're doing it with a client, that they do it outside of the session and bring their notes with them. So take a few moments to select a future time period. This could be 6 months' time, a year, 5 years from now. One of my goals was to buy my own property, and it's a goal I set myself 5 years ago. I've now realised that goal, and my strength of perspective definitely helped with that. So imagine that at that time, whichever time period you choose, you're expressing your best possible self. So visualize your best possible self in a way that is pleasing to you and that you are interested in. Imagine the details really closely. You might think of this as researching your full potential or hitting an important milestone, perhaps realizing one of your big life goals. Reach high, but be realistic. After you've got a fairly clear image, write about the details. So for example, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a property. Where do you want to buy that property? What type of property do you want to have? Writing about your best possible self helps to create a logical structure for the future and can help you move on from kind of foggy ideas and kind of piecemeal thoughts to concrete, real possibilities. I highly recommend doing this over a couple of days, setting yourself a time limit, 15, 20 minutes, and you keep writing until the end of that time frame. Doing it more than once embeds that in your brain. So write about the character strengths you observe in this image and what you've written, and what character strengths you will need to deploy to make this vision a reality. So, for example, I've already mentioned that perspective was one of the strengths that I needed to rely on to be able to see the big goal and when that could be realised. I think when I originally did it, I was 5 years down the line, so I'm a year ahead of my schedule. So write down your specific goal and the action plan that as a result from this exercise. You can narrow this goal or focus onto a specific area. And you could narrow this best possible self down to what this looks like at work, with your colleagues, if you're a teacher with your students, or think more broadly, how does this big picture help with my life goal and how can I use my strengths to get there? So here's an example. I see myself doing work that is meaningful and fills me with a sense of purpose as I help people reach their dreams on a daily basis. I will use my love of learning strength to return to school to study new topic areas. I will use my social intelligence to network with people in the helping profession and stay open to emerging pathways that might broaden my experiences. So I highly recommend, if out of anything, I would recommend this strategy above all else to help with future happiness. The final strategy I'd like to share with you is boosting a lower strength. A common and perhaps even universal behaviour that after a person takes the VIA strength survey is to look at their bottom strengths. I know I certainly did. People do have a natural inclination to judge these as weak areas and therefore want to improve them. Just a note that they're not weaknesses, they are lesser strengths. They are still apparent, they are still evident in us. They are just ones that are underused, underutilised, or not ones that we pay attention to. So they're not referred to weaknesses, since the VIA survey does not measure weaknesses, it measures relative strengths. Lower strengths might be less developed strengths, they're not valued as highly, or ones that don't come as naturally or as easy to us. They're working hypotheses to explore in oneself and in others as to reason why a strength is lower in one profile, and this is unique to each person. Research has shown support for working on signature strengths. There hasn't been as much for character strengths working on the lower strengths in the profile. I imagine that's happening now, but it's not something I have evidence for at the moment. So the purpose of this is to improve strengths use, boost a strength you are less familiar with, widen your overall character strengths knowledge. So the first step is to take the VIA survey. Choose one of your lower strengths, one of those that appear in the bottom 5 of your profile. You're going to use the lower strength in a new way each day. Some people might struggle to implement ways to use a lower strength, as these strengths are likely to be unfamiliar, not particularly energizing, and may seem inauthentic to use. One can remember or could lean on the towing effect, which refers to using one of your signature strengths to tow along or bring forward a lower strength. So you could link one of your top 5 to one of your bottom 5 and use them together to help you to boost your lower strength. So for example, one person's signature strength of curiosity can be used to tow along a lower strength of humility by using an interested or questioning orientation with different people at a party, so thereby placing the attention on others. So curiosity is high, they might tend to ask questions, but their humility is low, so they tend to take over the situation. So in research, one randomized trial found that a group of participants who worked on one higher strength and one lower strength had benefits for happiness compared to a placebo. Other studies have found benefits for groups who are focused on boosting a lower strength. Proyer and his colleagues, in their study, the participants experienced benefits to well-being when they focused on their lower strengths, And this effect was particularly strong for participants who were not high in terms of overall strengths endorsement. Yes, I agree, Darko. It's good to use as frequently as possible, if not a daily practice. Okay, so these are the 3 strengths. So just to recap, I'll go back up a minute. So developing character strengths, questioning why strengths, why use them. And this I would highly recommend doing if you are new to using this. First, do it with yourself as maybe a journaling exercise or with your own coach. Then use it if you are going to use it with your clients. Get them to think about why character strengths might be important for them. The second strategy is to develop a strength habit. So using this more often, creating a cue, creating a routine, and rewarding yourself for that. And the final, there were 4, sorry, I thought there were only 3. Imagining your best possible future self. This is the one that I've done myself most regularly, and I highly recommend it. And then the final one is boosting a lower strength. So I have done this with my perseverance and self-regulation. I'm not quite there yet, but I definitely feel that they have been boosted since the first time I did this. This is the end of what I have to tell you. Just a few references to share with you. I'll post this one in the chat for you. This is the VIA Strength survey. This is where to register if you want to take this survey. These are the 2 books that I would recommend. This one I have in front of me right here. It's quite a lengthy tome, but you have lots of strategies, lots of interventions in there that I've used in my coaching and continue to use in my coaching. I'd just like to say thank you for persevering with the Zoom. I don't know if it's my internet, the world in general, or just testing my perseverance strength today. And then just finally, this is my contact information. I'm offering a free character strength session for anybody who would want one. So that would be an hour coaching session looking at your character strengths. On here is my email, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Instagram, and my WeChat code if I'm not already connected with you on WeChat. I'll leave that up for another moment, and then I'm going to stop sharing so that you can ask any questions if you have any. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And now I can see all of your lovely faces again. Any questions?
In a few minutes, maybe share it again, and I might do it as well. I might take you up on that offer later. I see a lot of value in this, and beautiful model. I was excited while you were sharing it because it's good stuff.
Okay. I can also show you what the survey looks like. I'm not sure what you can see, so let me get rid of that. So this is just my information. I'm going to stop sharing and bring up the PDF of...
Do you use them as cards as well?
Yeah, I have cards. I do have cards. Most of my coaching I've done in the last year at least has been done virtually, so I tend not to use the cards in my practice, but I have used them in the past. There are some studies that are happening with using character strengths in schools. There's a couple of schools just outside of Melbourne where there's a lot of research going into positive education, and every child in that school knows their own character strengths and how they can use them. And it's talked about as if, you know, as easily as you talk about what you have for lunch. And I think it's fantastic. And I think if adults did the same thing as these children were doing, then we would all be much happier people. Okay, I will just share my screen to show you what the survey looks like. This is the one I wanted. So this is, the screen looks like this when it first gives you your strengths, and it tells you your top 5, and then it asks you to click down. But if you go to the bottom, you can download the PDF, which I find really useful. And it gives a description of each of the character strengths. So my top 5 here are perspective, leadership, kindness, love of learning, and fairness. And then if I scroll down to the bottom, my bottom 5, which those of you who know me might not be surprised about this, zest, appreciation of beauty and excellence, spirituality, perseverance, and self-regulation. My bottom 5 have changed slightly, but the bottom 2 have not changed at all. And the top 5, the only one that often pops into there is hope. And hope and gratitude sometimes pop into the top 5 as well. But as I said, it's not static. It can change depending on your circumstances. So I will pop the link in the chat. Character strength.
Someone asked a question before. I didn't see who it was in the chat window. Someone was asking, do the results vary after a bottle of wine?
They can do. It can do. Generally speaking, your top strengths will change. There is a survey you can pay for. I think it's like $49, that it will give you the breakdown. So this is just very black and white. This is what's come out at number 1, number 2, number 3. Whereas if you're really interested in it, you can pay for it. I'm not on a commission for this or anything, but it will break it down into, so your 3rd and 4th, for example, there might be 0.0001 of a difference between them. So you might think, oh, that's interesting that was in my top 5 and that wasn't. But you might find that the ranking between them, it's literally just, they've put that one higher because it's alphabetically higher in the register. But I'm just putting the survey into the chat box for you. The survey is free, and I am also offering a free session to anybody. Once you've taken the survey, send me your details, and I'm offering a free session to talk through your character strengths, and to look at some ways that you can use those in your work, your life, your relationships, etc., etc. Anybody have any questions?
Hello.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, I have a question. So what is typically the reason why a strength will change over time and like go up? So for example, I took one in March and I just recently took another one, and humor, which was number 11, is now my top one. It actually eclipsed creativity, which is kind of funny and ridiculous, but yeah.
So it is very subjective. It depends on how you answer the questions at that particular time. It can change depending on what you've been focusing on in your life. It can also be, like I said a few minutes ago, that it may be that it actually wasn't really 11, maybe 9, 10, 11 were all at a similar level. And whatever's happened in your life recently may mean that humour has come more naturally to you. And when I very first took the VIA Strength Survey about 3 years ago, I think forgiveness has been top for me before, kindness has been top for me before, but certainly in the last 18 months, perspective has been one of the ones that's remained at the top. So you might find by doing it regularly, I'd actually forgotten, if I'm honest, that I should have done it again, and I did it again this morning, and I was really kind of surprised to see that the top 5 were almost exactly as the same as they were a year ago. And I have been doing quite a lot of work, probably not as much as I could do, on perseverance and self-regulation. And those 2 remain concreted at the bottom of my strengths. So yeah, it can be, life, your circumstances, the mood that you're in. And as Adrian said, with a bottle of wine, you might be a little bit more open and a little bit less prudent than you would be in normal day-to-day life. So it can change depending on circumstances, but generally speaking, the top 5, 6, 7 are always somewhere in the top 5, 6, 7. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.